Broadcasting from the trunk of Norm Macdonald's car, this is the Arch Advocate Show. It's the Arch Advocate Show! Welcome back. It's Thursday, folks. Are you ready for the Twitt-pocalypse? Oh, it's all coming down. I called it. I said this weeks ago. Or was it months ago? It was a long-ass time ago. Folks, it's coming, all right? If you are conservative, right? If you love America, if you are a patriot, if you are a veteran, if you're just happy that you live in the Western world anywhere, right? You live in a place that you're happy that plague no longer affects us, famine no longer affects us. We're exempt. Because we figured it out. because our fathers and our forefathers were people who read the Bible and they trusted that God was with them, and they understood that they were free, and they used that freedom to go into the sciences and to go, and to figure things out, like, how to make it so that crops don't fail, and how, and viruses can't kill us, and that sort of thing. Like, if you're happy about that, there is an organization of people who hate you. They hate it that you're happy. That's why. They are miserable, and they see that you're happy, and they see that you're content, and they hate you for it. They don't want their own contentment. They don't want their own happiness. They want you to be unhappy. That socialism is the religion of weakness, right? It is the doctrine of failure. Right? Socialism doesn't want everybody to be equally rich. They want everybody to be equally poor. Capitalism says, I believe that everybody can be wealthy. I believe that everybody can be wealthy. Everyone. You say, well, Pete, there's only so much money. No. Money is miraculous, right? If you know how to use it, money is miraculous. In fact, somebody remind me, I need to do a whole show on that. But listen, the Twitt-pocalypse, it's coming, and that's what we're talking about today. I know Donald Trump did some very awesome things yesterday with NATO and with Angela Merkel, and there's a lot there, man, right? I know that, leftists are just losing their, they are misplacing their feces right now, if you will. They're losing their stuff over the, Justice Kavanaugh, the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh, right? But listen, there's something that we need to talk about together, collectively, all right? And we need to be serious about this because it's coming. And if you don't believe me, now look, remember 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, on the news they were telling us Hillary Clinton had an over 90% chance of winning. Do you remember that? Do you remember seeing that on the news? Oh, the polls are in, over 90%. Right? The only people who get 90% are dictators, right? And they were telling us Hillary Clinton has an over 90% chance of winning. You know what that was? That wasn't somebody's erroneous math. That was propaganda. And the purpose of that propaganda was to demoralize Republicans from voting, or independents, or anybody else, because the idea was, well, most people believe that their vote doesn't count, right? And so they used that as their premise of, like, well, since most people already feel like, well, my vote doesn't really count, if we tell all those people to not even bother showing up because Hillary Clinton's got it in the bag, then they won't show up and they won't vote. It was propaganda, and it backfired. Because as it turns out, people do vote. People do believe that their vote counts. And when they saw that Hillary Clinton had a 90% chance of winning, they went out and voted. Backfire. But the thing that you have, the ball that you have to keep your eye on, is that there was a massive propaganda push by mainstream media to tell the world Hillary Clinton's got a 90% chance of winning, even though it was already clear that she had screwed Bernie Sanders. Not just Bernie Sanders, she screwed the Democratic National Convention Committee, the DNC, had decided on behalf of their voters what their vote was going to count for. They voted for Bernie Sanders, and they said, we're going to give all those votes to Hillary Clinton. That's a fact. Even Bernie Sanders believes that. You know how I know that? Because he sued a number of states for doing that. Or he sued he sued the DNC from Florida, and he sued the DNC from California and you know, a couple other states, because he saw what happened. Now listen, I am not a Bernie Sanders fan at all, but I'm more of a Bernie Sanders fan than I am a fan of subverting the will of the people, right? And that's what the DNC did. People voted in California and in Florida for Bernie Sanders for the primaries, right? They said, we want this guy to run as the head of the party. We want him to run for president, right? Now I'm glad he's not president, but I don't appreciate that. Like when I joined the Marine Corps, it was like, look, let the will of the people be done, whatever it may be. Let the will of the people be done. And when those people subverted, you know, the will of Bernie Sanders voters, it was like, whoa, we're in some very strange territory here, right? But back to keeping your eye on the ball, right? The influence over the media that the Democrats have, it's wizardry, right? Ooh, we're gonna tell people 90% chance. Ooh, you know what I mean? And when we just saw, like, again, think about this. Like, keep your eye on the ball. This isn't conspiracy theory. Like, we saw all these things play out. Bill Clinton was on whatever it was, 60 Minutes or whatever that show was, and that the guy interviewing said, "So what's the deal with Monica Lewinsky? I mean, you know, you used your power inappropriately. You had sex with that girl. You stuck a cigar in her vagina. You know, what about that? How do you think that applies to the Me Too movement nowadays?" And Bill Clinton wasn't expecting that, right? He was expecting to get all the love and admiration that he's always gotten from his fellow Democrats and from, you know, the news media that has always adored him. And he was blindsided. He was shook. You can go back. You can watch that. I should probably put it on my YouTube broadcast, but I won't. He was shook if you saw that. And then what happened? The very next broadcast day, right? Because it was either the very next day on a calendar, or it was, you know, the first interview was on a Friday, and then on Monday he was on Colbert's show. Think about the power you would have to wield it in that way, where this guy gets on TV, completely gets broadsided by a question about his life. Say, hey, Bill Clinton, like, you did that? Like, that's something you did. You know everything about that, and you're a Democrat. You're supposed to be the champions of women's rights. You know what I mean? Like, this is something that you should be able to talk about at any given moment because it's your life. We're not talking about theoretical stuff here. We're talking about you. And the very next broadcast day, he's sitting down on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert the very next day. And what's the question that Stephen Colbert, without and by the way, it's Colbert, without any shame, right? with no, like, hey, we're not even trying to hide it now. We're just gonna. He sits across from Bill Clinton and says, hey, listen, you were asked a question the other day. Wow, you screwed up the answer, so let's give you a redo, right? Let's give you a do-over. Let's give you a mulligan, right? Like in golf. And if you're not a golfer, that means a redo, right? How about this? How about I sit across the desk and I ask you the exact same question now that you've had, 24 hours or more to think about it and script out an answer. That takes power over the media to pull that off. That is a disturbing amount of power, right? Like, eventually I'm going to say something on this show that's going to be, maybe a little too far over the line, maybe a little too far over the top, right? I'm not going to be able to go on Stephen Colbert or Jimmy Kimmel and be like, sorry about that. What I really meant to say was blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? This guy gets to just go on Stephen Colbert and redo, right? That's power. And there's these people that are in power. They're not licking their wounds right now. They're not sitting there thinking, "Oh, we're defeated. We've been found out." Right? "Oh, you know what? Like, this is like a football team and we need to rebuild." Right? We need to rebuild our offensive line. We need to find new running backs. We need to find a new quarterback. That's not what they're thinking. Right? Like my beloved former San Diego Chargers, right? They're now the Los Angeles Chargers, and I will not have anything to do with them. But, you know, we are a perennial team that does not go to the Super Bowl. Right? We've had some very good years. We've even been to the Super Bowl in, what was that, 1994? But there's been a lot of times, when, like, and I'm sure, you know, unless you're from Boston, right? Unless you live in New England, you know, your team has had to go through some rebuilding times. That is not what the leftists are doing right now. They're not looking at themselves going, "Well, how can we fix this?" What they're doing is saying, we need to double tap. We need our power back right now. We don't want it back in 10 years from now when we've had a chance to rebuild, rebrand, restate our purpose. They're doubling down. Now the Democrat Party as a whole has wholly embraced socialism because they believe that the majority of Democrats are socialists. That's what they believe. They're doubling down. Boy, they can't get enough of this 28-year-old girl who, by the way, she's not a congresswoman yet. She won the nomination, right? Like, there's still a vote in November to figure out who's going to be the congressperson of that district. Now, that is a very left-leaning district, but only 5% of the registered voters even showed up to vote, right? And of that, you know, she won. Out of those, you know, less than 5% of people who showed up to vote. It would not be a shocker if she lost in November. But that's what they're doing. That's what the Democrats are doing right now. Instead of saying, "Wow, man, like maybe this angle on socialism, maybe we shouldn't be pushing so hard in that direction because that's going to push a lot of leftists. It's not going to bring new blood registered Democrats over, right?" I've seen in my lifetime, like I said, I'm 45. You know, I've been old enough to vote now for 27 years. I've seen Republicans switch their party over and go vote Democrat. I've seen that happen. And I've seen Democrats switch over and become Republicans. Like, I've seen that. That's normal, right? That's normal. People change their opinions all the time. But when you start talking about socialism, you're not going to get registered Republicans to become the new blood of the Democratic Party. You're gonna solidify those people, and you're gonna push Democrats out. There's gonna be more Democrats. It's already happening. It's called the Walk Away movement. There's a whole movement, right? What's that guy? Brandon Straka. He's like the head of it, right? There's a whole movement of people just leaving, right? Because that's what happens. Like these people are pushing their party out, and you know, members of their own party out, and they are wholesale doubling down on everything, even pedophilia, right? Now the Democrats are starting to embrace these people who are like, well, we just have a different kind of sexuality that involves kids. You know what I mean? Like, they're sick. And this, you know what I mean? Like, you start messing around with stuff like that. It's like this. Like, think about it this way. You know, if when you hear on the news, like, some guy got murdered, right? Like, the first thing that pops into your head, I mean, aside from the initial shock of, like, somebody lost their life, is you start to wonder, like, oh, I wonder why that guy killed him. I wonder what that guy did to make that other guy so mad. You know what I mean? Like, there's that sort of, in your brain, you try to rationalize it. It's like, were they in a fight? Right? Did the guy that get killed, did he, like, say something awful about the other guy's wife? Like, what happened? You know what I mean? You start to moving into, Benson and Stabler mode, like gonk gonk. Like, what happened? What was the motivation here, right? Like, if I came home one day and my wife said, hey, Pete, I'm sorry to tell you this, but today I murdered your sister. I think the first question out of my mouth would be, well, what did my sister do to make you so angry? You know what I mean? Like my mind would be like, well, is there a reason? Is there a reason this happened? But when it comes to pedophilia, we don't ask those questions. That's not where our mind goes. We don't try to figure out like, well, why did this happen? You know what I mean? We look at those people and it's like, no, that's a person who needs to get off of my planet. We need to remove that person. That's a person who is violently attacking the vulnerable. And that's demonic, and that person's got to go. You see the difference? And now the Democrats, they're just in this sort of beginning stages of saying, well, maybe pedophilia ain't so bad. Maybe it's just like, there's some sort of, biological preconditions. Like, no. We are not, as a society, going to begin to go down that road. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. We gave you a little room on the whole gay marriage thing. There is no room on this topic. There's no room. Right? You start going down that way and people, I'm telling you, that's the kind of thing that leads to bloodshed quickly. Right? You start coming after people's kids. It's like, all right, well, it's either that guy or me. If I got to go to prison for the rest of my life to protect my kids, that's how it's going to be. Right? Like, as parents, like, we all know that, intrinsically, we all know, like, we have to protect our kids from people like that. Right? Like, that sort of thing, that's a parent's worst nightmare. And you're trying to bring a nightmare into reality. You're trying to reach up into the ether and grab this nightmare and pull it down into the temporal. We're not doing that. We are not doing that as a society. So as it applies to the Twitter-pocalypse, we already know that Twitter's in the bag of the Democrats, right? The powers that be, if you will, the left, the people who think that George Soros is a hero. We already know that Twitter's in their bag. We've known it this entire time. Now listen, we are going to lose our accounts, and we're going to lose our accounts repeatedly. I've already lost mine once. I laugh about it now because back then it was like, oh my God, I was all the way up to 1,000 followers, right? And I lost my account. I was really bummed out about that. Now I have 6,000, and most of my friends on Twitter, they all have like 15,000 and 50,000 and like all these numbers. It was, if I lost my little 6,000, I would be really upset, But these other people, there's a lot of good patriots and good solid Christian folk that are on Twitter. They have tens of thousands of people. When they lose their account, what are we going to do? So that's what we're talking about today. What are you going to do? Here's what we're going to do together. You and me. Everybody within the sound of my voice. Here's what we're going to do. Number one, when you reopen your account, right? When you start over and you reestablish a new Twitter account, search for the hashtag MAGA, M-A-G-A, Make America Great Again, right? You do that as a search and you will find everybody who posted. Now, why would you do that? You go on and you make your first post and you put it in your profile, but you make your first post just hashtag MAGA. So that when somebody else does that search of that hashtag, you and everybody else is going to pop up. And then we can start hitting follow on each other's pages. And we can rebuild like that, right? You can use other things too. Code of vets, right? The code of the veterans. Code of vets. Hashtag code of vets. Whatever. But if we all agree on this before it happens, when it's time to rebuild, it'll be a quick rebuild process. Yes, it'll be a pain in the ass, but that's all right. Like, listen, I'm not saying we need to forsake Twitter altogether. I like Twitter, right? It's easy to use, you know. I like Facebook too, but I just don't, I don't appreciate, you know, having my data sold. I don't appreciate having my voice stifled, right? But if they want to shut me down, it's like, look, there's more of us than there are of you. And we have the moral high ground. And on top of that, we've got all the guns and all the ammunition and all the training, right? And all the military training. So I'm not afraid of this, and neither you shouldn't be afraid of it either. It's going to happen, right? It's like if you're a woman, or if you're a husband and you've got a baby on the way. It's like, you're afraid of giving birth, right? Because it's going to be painful. It's going to be awful, right? Your wife's going to be laying there screaming, and you're going to be standing there stupid and helpless. You know what I mean? Like, it's scary. But there's nothing you can do about it. It's inevitable. Don't fear the inevitable. It's coming. And I use that example because, like, one, I just had a baby last August, and two, I'm having another baby this October. I'm scared. I'm scared because I already know what's coming, because I saw it once. It's awful. It's frightening. My wife's going to be in a lot of pain. She's a tiny little thing. You know what I mean? She's got a big-ass baby sticking out of her belly. Right? But I can't be afraid of the inevitable. I know it's coming. And same thing with her. Well, this is coming, people. The Twitt-pocalypse is coming. They announced it. Right? So when you rebuild, put hashtag MAGA as your first tweet. Right? And no matter what you tweet out, put that hashtag in there so that the rest of us can find you. Right? Second thing, get a Gab AI page. All right? Okay, maybe you haven't seen it. All right? For those of you who don't know what it was that I just said, there is another social media platform called Gab AI. And the guy who runs it is a conservative. All right? The guy who owns it or whatever. They don't stifle free speech. Not for anybody. You can say whatever you want on Gab AI. Even repulsive people can say what they want to say, right? But here's another thing about Gab AI. It's not as pretty as Twitter is. It's not as user friendly, but it is user, right? You can use it. It's user compliant, I guess would be the word. Get a Gab AI account. Right? Get a Gab AI account now and go through your Twitter pages, and you'll see some people, in fact, somebody remind me, I'll do this today. I'll put my Gab AI link on my Twitter page. Right? Get a Gab AI page and stay in contact with like-minded people. That way we can regroup over there. To think about this like militarily, right? Like be a little Marine with me. Be a little soldier. Right? Think about this. If you get cut off from the rest of your troop, you have to know where the staging point is, where the regrouping point is. The regrouping point will be at Gab AI. That's already been set. Right? Like collectively in the Twitter space, like we've already sort of unconsciously agreed on that. And a lot of us have Gab AI accounts. Go open a Gab AI account. It's free, right? I know it's a pain in the ass, but it's not a pain in the ass like changing a tire pain in the ass. It's like, doing the dishes when you finally get to the silverware. You're just like, oh, this thing again. You know what I mean? But you do it anyways. It's that. All right? It's not that big of a problem. Get a Gab AI account and post it on your Twitter, so that other Twitter followers can see that, click on that, go to your Gab AI account and follow you over there. And you need to be following other people over there as well so that we can regroup together. That's how we win, right? These people are not organized, right? The left, they are confused. Their whole thing is confusion. That's why their tactics are confusion. Right? Their tactic was to get out on the media, on mainstream media, and say Hillary Clinton has a 90% chance of winning. Why? Well, because they wanted to confuse people. Didn't work. Right? Confusion is weakness. Confusion is the weaponry of the devil. right? It's darkness. It's confusion. And that's who these people are. The reason I started off this podcast with, the Norm Macdonald joke. Listen, if Norm Macdonald is a really funny comedian, right? He's a guy from Canada. He used to be on Saturday Night Live. He had this joke one time. He said like people misuse the word literally, right? Now I can't do a Norm Macdonald voice, and this isn't going to be funny to you, but he was making a comedic observation that people are always like, saying things like, "Oh man, did you see that movie? Man, it was so great, man. My head literally exploded." You know what I mean? And it's like that you're not using that word correctly. Like your head did not literally explode. What you meant to say was figuratively. Like, man, my head figuratively exploded. You know what I mean? And I appreciate that because I am a self-confessed word snob. I don't like it when people use the wrong word. Like when people say irregardless, it's like, oh, fingernails on a chalkboard. But these people, they're lost. They don't have the meanings of words. They'll say things like, Donald Trump is literally Hitler. It's like, well, no, he's not. I mean, Adolf Hitler was literally Hitler, and Donald Trump, like, you mean to say you think that Donald Trump is figuratively Hitler? That's how that word works. You can't just say literally. And look at how confused they are when Donald Trump wins the Electoral College, and all of a sudden these people are like, oh, the Electoral College, it's this ancient, outdated thing. It's like, okay, so what you're saying is that had Hillary Clinton won with just the Electoral College, you would say that we need to get rid of Hillary Clinton? We need to get rid of the Electoral College because it's old and outdated? Or would you have sat there and said, you see, the system works? You see what I'm saying? Like, they don't know. They don't know why the Electoral College is there, why it's important. And therefore, when they get broadsided by it, they feel horribly victimized because they're just people that are walking around in the dark. And every time a branch scrapes across their eyeball because they can't see because it's so dark, every time they get hurt, they blame the forest. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, no. The forest was already there. You are lost. The forest isn't lost. You're lost, right? The sun isn't dark. You're in the darkness. You know what I mean? These people, this is not going to be a difficult victory to obtain. It's going to take a long time. It's going to involve bloodshed. It's going to involve minor inconveniences like having your Twitter page discarded and having to start all over again. It's going to involve having your Facebook page taken down, right? There's going to be things that are going to be a part of this. And listen, all you have to do is prepare. That's it. Just be prepared, right? Boy Scout motto, be prepared. And how are we going to prepare? You and me, together, all of us, millions upon millions of us. We're going to go to Twitter, and we're going to make sure that we know who our friends are. We're going to go to Gab AI so that we have that staging point, and hopefully with that new influx of people that have a Gab AI page, maybe that guy who owns it will make some more money and spend some more money on making his social media platform more user-friendly and more accessible. But Gab AI, that's where we're all going. Now, another thing, you have to keep your eye on other social media platforms. If you've never heard of it, there is a new platform called Telegram. There's no pictures, there's no like you can share pictures and share videos, but it's not that kind of page. It's a page that is meant for live conversations, and it's called Telegram, and it's free, but it takes a little while to set up. It's a little bit more of a pain in the neck, but it's free and you can use it. You can go onto my Telegram page, Arch Advocate. It's on my Twitter page. In the little description, and it's listed under where my website is. It'll say .te or whatever. Click on that and it'll redirect you. You can open up a Telegram page and you can join the conversation on Arch Advocate. right? And it's you can talk with like-minded people in real time at any hour, right? And I've got fans all over the world that are of like mind, right? Most of them are, the people outside of the United States. Most of them are cryptocurrency enthusiasts, right? So there's going to be some of that conversation, but for the most part, they're all people like us, right? Come on to the Telegram page, join it. Come join us over here and start your own Telegram page, just like you would start your own Twitter page, right? So that we can talk to one another in real time. And by the way, Telegram, it's all encrypted, right? Nobody can see it. So that, there's that. That's nice. Tune into other people's YouTube pages, like Anomaly, for example. Anomaly, hey Anomaly, I've changed the format of my show. The new show is called The Arch Advocate Show. Please come on. But you can go onto YouTube and type in Anomaly, Anomaly. Anomaly. He's a cool guy. He's a leftist, turned away from the left, and he's now on our side. But he was talking about this very same thing. YouTube dishes out $25 million to fight fake news, and you need to listen to what this guy has to say. All right, I'm not going to put it in the show notes on the podcast because when I do that, it doesn't show up on Spotify and a couple of other ones, but. If you have YouTube, go watch today's episode of Anomaly's podcast. It's exactly what we're talking about today, right? This is coming, people. This is inevitable. Remember, these people on the left, the George Soros and the Clintons and these people, they do not see themselves as losing right now. They see themselves as, well, we need to double down once more. Once more into the fray. You know what I mean? Like they are pushing even harder. And the more power they lose and the more people walk away, the harder they fight. These people are not doing what normal people do in this situation where they realize like, oh, I'm just losing because I'm an asshole and maybe I should stop being an asshole. You know what I mean? That's not what they're doing. They're doubling down. They're calling their friends at Twitter. They're calling their friends at Facebook and they're saying, we need to silence these people because we have the most important election coming up this November. And we don't want these people communicating with one another. Can you please turn them all off? That's what's coming. It's coming, right? Like you don't have to be a prophet to look into the future and see this one coming. This is a no-brainer, people. That baby is coming out of the womb in November. You know what I mean? There is no getting around it. This is what we must do. So you tune into Anomaly, tune into Fleckus Talks, right? Subscribe to people who, go to the Joe Rogan page. Hit subscribe to that channel. He's neither a righty nor a lefty. He's just some guy who just talks all day, whatever. But when you do that, that gives us more of a staging point. If you come onto my YouTube channel, hit subscribe, right? Go on to Anomaly's channel, hit subscribe. And when you do that, when your Twitter page gets turned off, you can go to these YouTube channels before they get turned off, and you can leave comments and leave your address on Gab AI or leave your new address on Twitter so that we can all see it and regroup in our numbers. Where we go one, we go all, right? Where we go one, we go all. Now, we need to come together. Come together, right? That's what we're doing. So listen, the Twitt-pocalypse is coming. Tune into the Arch Advocate Show. Hit subscribe on the podcast, right? If you're on iTunes, hit subscribe. Spotify, SoundCloud, hit subscribe, right? Now, the podcast thing, those are going to be like the last. If these things get censored, they'll be the last to go, right? It's going to go in this order. Twitter first and YouTube second, and then probably Facebook somewhere in the mix. But podcasts like this one and other ones. Dan Bongino. Subscribe to the Dan Bongino podcast, right? If for no other reason, just to be prepared, right? So that you can find, when this happens, people like me, people like Dan Bongino and Anomaly and Tim Pool and guys like this, like when it happens, it's going to be the first thing out of our mouths, and we will have instructions on how to regroup and how to come back together. We're going to win, right? Because we're not the party of screwing voters out of their vote. We're not the party of advocating for pedophilia, right? We're not those people. We're not living in confusion. We're not living in the darkness, right? When we get lost in the forest, we calm down is what we do, right? We calm down. We take a look at our surroundings. We figure out, what our assets are. We figure out where the sun is in the sky. You know what I mean? Like we plan. We don't get frightened by the darkness, right? We don't get frightened by the forest or feeling alone. What we do is we know where our regrouping points are. We know where our friends are. And there are strength in numbers. Now listen, if you want to support the show, go on to archadvocate.com. Archadvocate.com. If you want to send a couple of bucks a month, you can do that on Patreon, right? Become a monthly patron. Or if you just want to send a little dough, go on to PayPal. You can do that there. Go on to my Twitter page, right? Go on to my Twitter page, @RealPeteDobson. Click on the Telegram link. Go over there, join the conversation there. If you want to start your own page, I recommend doing that too. That is the show for today. We will talk to you tomorrow.